Take Two. It's become really hip to criticize record labels. Music artists do it themselves quite often, including in songs. It's understandable as they can easily come across as soulless corporations like any other business. Still, I'm going to put that aside for the moment and just look at the history of A&M Records, and just remind people to take the good with the bad, even if just a little bit. A&M barely exists these days, but it originally had firmly established itself as a musical powerhouse through signing and licensing a lot of the artists we know and love today. If you're a huge music fan who wants to dive into music history and get nerdy about classics and rare tracks and sometimes forgotten recordings from the 1960s, 70s, and 80s, you'd be a fool to overlook the history of A&M. A&M Records was founded in 1962 by Herb Alpert and Jerry Moss, with an initial focus mostly on Latin jazz and R&B music styles. Alpert had been producing Latin music, and to this day, if you're looking at some old-fashioned record stores in the United States and presumably throughout the world, you'll most certainly find some Herb Alpert albums somewhere in the mix. Looking to grow its potential, A&M Records began to explore the market for what I might call sun-drenched rock, the hippie kind of stuff originally. So you had the folk acts as well thrown in there, but you also had jazz rock, fusion artists, and so on. And, of course, you've got some hard rock bands that eventually entered into their repertoire. Of course, like so many others, the record company ended up merging and mutating into a corporate hydra. And so specifically, A&M was acquired by Polygram in 1989, and the dominoes basically started falling after that even more. And they've since had a long history of being subsumed by other labels, essentially taking over A&M's business and rendering it practically non-existent. So they basically only exist as some legal technicality. So even Wikipedia's page, if you look at it, it says A&M was an American record label, which implies it's practically not even itself anymore. But anyway, if you want to look at the legacy, here's a sample, a partial catalog of artists that are actually living through that record label's history. So you had people like the Gin Blossoms, Dishwalla, Joe Cocker, Procol Harum, Captain and Tennille, Sting, Sergio Mendes, Supertramp, Bryan Adams, Burt Bacharach, Liza Minnelli, The Carpenters, Paul Williams, Quincy Jones, Janet Jackson, Cat Stevens, Peter Frampton, Carole King, Styx, Dennis DeYoung, Extreme, Amy Grant, Joan Baez, The Police, John Arden, CeCe Peniston, Blues Traveler, Soundgarden, Phil Oakes, Sheryl Crow, Aaron Neville, Monster Magnet, Therapy, the Brothers Johnson, who has a great song called Get the Funk Out of My Face. Anyway, you also had the Go-Go's, Oingo Boingo, the Human League, Nazareth, Steelers Wheel, Wes Montgomery, and Billy Preston, among plenty of others. So, really, I don't have much more to say about them. I was just wanting to go over the basics, the meat and potatoes of the record label. And so, obviously, you've heard some of those music artists that I rattled off, most likely. And, yeah, have a nice day.